Hello everybody. My name is Roslyn T. Ridado, and my assigned topic is all about the cognitive development of the preschoolers, which is Module 16. So before I start the discussion, I will give first the learning outcomes. In this module, you should be able to describe the cognitive development that takes place among preschoolers, apply concepts on preschoolers' cognitive development in preschool teaching and in child care, and take an informed or stand or position on current preschool teaching practices. The abstraction, preschooler symbolic and intuitive thinking. There are two subtypes of Piaget, free of rational thought, which is a symbolic stage, and intuitive stages. Number one is a symbolic stage. Preschool children show a progress in their cognitive abilities by being able to draw objects that are not present, by their dramatic increase in their language and make-believe play. And for intuitive stage, preschool begin to use primitive reasoning and ask a litany question. The development in their language ability is to facilitate their English asking question. Piaget stage of cognitive development. Stage 2, free of rational stages. The free of rational stage covers from about 2 to 7 years old, roughly corresponding to the preschool years. Intelligence at this stage is intuitive in nature. These are the development tasks. Number one is a symbolic function. This is the ability to represent object and event. A symbol is a thing that represents something. For example, a child playing with a toy can mentally picture and experience the toy even after it has been taken away, and he or she can no longer see it. And for number 2 is the egocentrism. This is the tendency of the preschooler to only see his point of view and to assume that everyone also has his point of view. Example, it might be that upon seeing his mother crying, a young children gives her his favorite stuffed animal, to make her feel better. Number 3 is the centration. This is referred to the tendency of our preschooler to only focus on one's aspect. This also referred to as undimensional thought. An example of centration is a child focusing on the number of pieces of cake that each person has, regardless of the size of the pieces. Number 4 is irreversibility. Preschool children still have the inability to reverse their thinking, they can understand that juice in each glass can be poured back into the juice box from which it came. For example, if a 3 years old boy sees someone flattening a ball of a play doll, he will not understand that the doll can easily be reformed into a ball. Number 5 is the anism. This is the tendency of the preschooler to attribute a human-like trait or characteristic to inanimate objects. An example could be a child believing that the sidewalk was mud and made fall down, or that the star twinkle in the sky because they are happy. Number 6 is transductive reasoning. This refers to the pre-operational children type of reasoning that is neither inductive nor deductive reasoning, appear to be from a particular to particular. For example, a child might say that it is windy outside because someone is blowing very hard, or the clouds are white because someone painted them that color. Brain connection in the preschool year. So, because of fascinating developments in neuroscience, brain development of a young have been of a great interest to the field of early childhood. Brain research findings point us to more effective ways to care for and teach a preschooler from science lesson you had in high school or even in elementary. Remember that our brain is composed of numerous cells called neuron that connect to each function. Cell connection are what we call synapses, sometimes also referred to as synaptic connection. So did you know that the human brain contains some 50 billion neurons at birth? And by age of 2, children have developed half of the brain cell connection that will be made during one lifetime. And around 6 years of age, the brain developed for more sophisticated thinking patterns. So all of these are the fact point to the numerous potential that the preschooler brain has. The child billion cell have the ability to make almost countless connections that preferred the child for interact pathway to learn language, acquired logical mathematics skills, interact with people, grow in his feelings and emotions, and even express himself in art. As such, a preschool teacher would often observe how a child now has transformed from a dependent toddler into proud and independent preschooler who can now eat more neatly, enjoy reading and a book. So next is the four main, so these are the four main areas of language. Number one is phonology, a study of speech and sounds. And number two is semantics, a study of word meaning and word combinations. Number three is a syntax, the study of a sentence constructions. And number four is the study of a conversation or a social uses of language. So these are the four main areas of language. So next is a Vygotsky socio-cultural theory, language and social interaction. So Vygotsky believed that young children use a language both communicate socially and to plan, guide, and monitor their behavior in a self-regulatory fashion called inner speech or a private speech. So private speech is all form of self-talk that guides the child thinking and action. But for Piaget, private speech is an egocentrism and immature. But by Vygotsky, it is an important tool of thought during early childhood. So this implies that the importance of interaction of preschooler with a caregiver for a language development. So zone of proximal development. So Vygotsky introduced the term zone proximal development to refer to tasks too difficult for a child to master alone but can be mastered with the guidance and assistance of adult or more skilled children. So scaffolding, a term that refers to the changing support over the course of teaching sessions. So with a more skilled person adjusting guidance to fit the child current performance level. So the more skilled person is also called more knowledgeable other. So, for example, if a student are not at the reading level required to understand that a text being taught in a course, so the teacher might be use instructional scaffolding to incrementally improve their reading ability until they can read the required text and independently and without assistance. So next is the information processing theory, which is attention and memory. So the information processing model is another way of examining and understanding how children develop cognitively. This model conceptualize children's mental processes through the metaphor of a computer processing, encoding, storing, and decoding encoding of data. So these are the short-term memory and the long-term memory. So short-term memory is a written information for up to 15 to 30 seconds, assuming that there is no rehearsal, which can help keep information in a short-term memory for a much longer period. So an example of this is when someone is giving a phone number and is forced to memorize it because there is no way to write it down. So for the long-term memory, so it is involved storing information about a sequence of events during familiar situation as a script. So scripts help a child to understand, interpret, and predict what will happen in the future scenarios. So example of a long-term memory, it is include a recollection of an important day in the distant past. So like early birthday, graduation, wedding, and etc. And work skill you learn in your first job out of school. So these are the various speculation and research finding a suggestion that a social experience is a very important. Social experience include early form of communications, imitations, make-believe play, language, social interaction. So a quick look what a preschoolers can do. So below are the list of preschoolers cognitive skills lifted from the Philippine Early Learning and Development Standards. So these are the receptive language domain, which is a cognitive development, and memory, which is epistemic memory. So first is the receptive language. So standard one. So the child is able to understand both verbal and non-verbal form of a communication. So 31 to 36 months, which is the 3 to 4 years old. So she or he can speak in a simple sentence, talks about an event and is understood. So for 37 to 48 months, it can uses some prepositions, uses of plurals, uses past tense, uses new learned word appropriately or na sentences, use a newly learned words appropriately when in group conversation. And for 49 to 60 months, which is 4 to 5 years old, so she or he can draw and tells a story about his drawing. So next is the free reading and free math, which is a matching. So standard 1.1. So the child is able to match identical object, color, shape, symbol. So for 31 to 36 months, which is 2.5 to 3 years old, so she or he can matches identical object with two attributes, which is color and shape. Also matches identical uppercase letters, matches identical lowercase letters. So for the 37 to 48 months, which is 3 to 4 years old, she or he can copy the simple patterns with two or more attributes, like for example colors, shape, sequence, and continues without a guidance. So also recognize the familiar logo like McDonald's, Coke, and etc. So recognize signs, which is a male and female restroom, stop and go, danger or a prison, and etc. So matches identical 2 to 4 letter words. She or he can also matches identical single digit numbers, and also matches identical 2 to digit numbers. So next is the free reading and free math, which is copying letters and numbers. So the child is able to recite the alphabet and number in sequence. So for 37 for 48 months, so which is 3 to 4 years old, so she or he can print a uppercase letter with some reversal. And 46 to 60 months, which is 4 to 5 years old, it can print a complete name without model with no reversal, print uppercase letter, a model with no reversal, and so on. So 61 to 67 months, 5 to 6 years old, she or he can print uppercase letters without a model and with no reversals. And also, she or he can print a lowercase letters with a model and with no reversal, and print number 1 to 5 without a model and with no reversal. So next is the domain cognitive development. So attention and activity. So the child is able to sustain attention and modulate his activity at the age expected level. So 31 to 36 months, which is 2.5 to 3 years old. So she or he can complete a simple task without frauding. So 37 to 48 months, which is 3 to 4 years old. She or he may be distracted but refocuses on her or his own. Remain settled while laughing through a picture book for 5 minutes. So next is the higher order mental abilities, which is a concept formation. So the child develops basic concepts pertaining to object constancy, space, time, quantity, duration, etc., and uses this as the basis for understanding how materials are categorized in his or her environment. So 31 to 36 months, which is 2.5 to 3 years old, she or he can know the difference between a recent event and one that happened a long time ago, and count with 1 to 1 correspondence. Understand the concept of number, quantity, relation from 1 through to 5. So which is hands over 5 object when asked. And so on. So for the 37-48 months, which is 4 to 5 years old, so she or he can tell which is a prettier or nicer of a two items based on his or her criteria. She or he can group picture object according to category, can tell which is left and right on his or herself, and understand more and less, and understand the concept of conversation of the matter at a rudimentary level. And for the 49 to 60 months, 4 to 5 years old, can tell which is the left and right of people facing him or her, and so on. So next is the higher order mental abilities, cause and effect relationships. So the child is able to understand the cause of effect relationship. So for 31 to 36 months, 2.5 to 3 years old, she or he can complete a simple pattern like beads, picture, or shape with occasional guidance. And for the 37 to 48 months, which is 3 to 4 years old, she or he can understand the reasons behind rules and practices in the community, like those pertaining to sanitation, environment, preservation, and etc. For the memory, which is a phistodemic memory, so the child is able to recall people he has met, events, and places he has been to. So for 31 to 36 months, which is 2.5 to 3 years old, she or he can talk about things that happened during a particular event that occurred sometimes back. So next is the memory, or memory for concept-based knowledge, or semantic memory. So the child is able to store verbal information in short and long-term memory. And for the 37 to 48 months, which is 3 to 4 years old, she or he can repeat 5 to 7 word sentences correctly, memorize the lyrics of a short song, and etc. So 49 to 60 months, which is 4 to 5 years old, can recite the days of the week with some errors, remember lesson learned in the school after several days have passed. And for the 61 to 71 months, 5 to 6 years old, can recite the days of the week with no errors, can recite the month of the year with some errors. And for the higher order mental abilities, which is the logical reasoning. So the child is able to follow the logic of events, which is a reason why this happened, and draw accurate conclusion by evaluating the facts presented to him. For 31 to 36 months, which is 2 to 3 years old, she or he can complete the simple patterns like veg, figure, shape with occasional guidance. And for the 37 to 48 months, which is 3 to 4 years old, she or he can tell what is silly or wrong with absurd pictures or sciences, and can argue a point or stand logically. And 49 to 60 months, so 44 to 5 years old, she or he can knows that a certain element should remain the same even if their position change, like for example 2 plus 3 and 3 plus 2 is equal to 5, and able to predict what will happen next in a story, can predict how a story will end halfway through. So higher order mental ability, so which is a planning and organizing. So the child is able to plan and organize a simple familiar activity. So for 31 to 36 months, which is 2 and a half and 3 years old, can plan how he or she will carry out an activity with adult guidance. In 37 to 48 months, she or he can dress following an organized sequence. So for the 49 to 60 months, which is 4 to 5 years old, can plan how he or she will carry out an activity with adult guidance. And for higher order mental abilities, which is creative and thought, so 31 to 36 months, which is 2 and a half to 3 years old, she or he can pretend to be a character in a familiar story. And also, she or he can create new words or names for peoples or object. So 37 to 48 months, which is 3 to 4 years old, can make a fun or a joke, create some dance moves. So for the 49 to 60 months, which is 4 to 5 years old, she or he can draw things or scenes from experience but with no actual model or references. So this is from memory. So 61 to 71 months, which is 5 to 6 years old, she or he can draw or paint things that do not exist in a real life, which is a fantasy or imaginations. So next is the higher order mental abilities, which is the cognitive flexibility. So the child is able to shift to more adaptive cognitive processing strategies in order to effectively deal with a new and unexpected condition in his or her environment, including problem situations. So for 37 to 48 months, 2 and a half to 3 years old, she or he can modify an action based on a new experiences, is able to shift activities with much force.